I want to clarify what we're voting on and how we got to where we're at today. So I don't know if this is for Mr. Gibbs or Mr. Lyons or who I should address it to, so I'll just make a statement, and if anybody wants to respond. It's my understanding that we initially went out for bid for the annual concrete and annual asphalt contracts. And through the course of some turnover and a review of that process, a decision, I believe, has been made to use the bidding process that took place to accomplish getting some emergency work done on a short-term basis, and that the bidding process for the annual contracts is under review and a new bidding process will take place. Is that a fair summary of what's taken place, and what we're being asked to vote on tonight is emergency repairs?
Good evening, Council. Craig Lyon, Executive Director of DPS. Councilman Mazura, you're correct. So any work that is going to be performed under this contract would be addressed on an as-needed basis throughout the course of the year. Any larger programs for concrete and asphalt work would come to you at a separate time.
So we don't have a current contract for concrete or asphalt. I think what I heard you say is this isn't really emergency, though. This is to have somebody lined up in the absence of a contract to do work if the need arises.
Correct. So one, emergency work or incidental work that occurs throughout the course of the year. This would allow us to be able to mobilize crews in protecting the health, welfare, and safety of our vehicles on the roadways to ensure that traffic can remain open. We're not causing obstacles and whatnot throughout the roadways. Any larger programs that we would do, so for instance, if Beach Daily or Wick or Goddard, all these different roads, whenever there's a larger program, at that time, that would be a separate project that we would come back to you for.
We need to have something in place, because otherwise you'd be waiting for the next council meeting to come to us and say, I've got a problem on ABC Road.
Right, and that's why you don't see quantity items in this, because it's usually typically smaller sections of work. So on the larger sections of work, we'll have quantities and being able to clearly identify what areas that we're working on.
I had a brief discussion last night with Mr. Gibbs, and when we're doing not just concrete, I've had similar conversations about sewer lining and whatnot. When there's a variety of items that somebody's submitting pricing on, how do we truly know who's the low bidder? Is it fair to say that the summary that council was given, that the units that were selected covered both the concrete and asphalt, or was there two different sets of units that these guys bid on and two different summaries that were used to determine who truly was the low bidder?
So there were two sections of, or two bids. One for concrete, one for asphalt. And in both of those unit pricing, the prices were delineated out separately for, 7-inch concrete, 6-inch concrete, 8-inch concrete, and then asphalt base course, leveling course, and so on. I can tell you that in the 3 weeks that, well, I think I've been here 3 weeks now, and Chris has been here 5. We have done our due diligence on these on this pricing, looking at the prices, comparing them to other communities to see what other communities are getting, and these prices are very, very competitive. So I like to have quantities in there, but you'll have quantities next time. So I did want to double check, and I can reassure the council this evening that in our due diligence to ensure that we are getting good pricing, the pricing that we did receive is very competitive, and in some cases even lower than what some 2019 and 2020 bids have been.
And just in general, so I have the proper mindset, the work to go out and maybe secure a contract, do you think we're 6 months out, are we 3 months out, or are we going to sit on this for a while? I mean, what's the time frame in your mind to go back out and secure either an annual or a 2 or a 3 year contract for this type of work?
Well, Mr. Gibbs is pounding payment right now. We're assembling a lot of quantities, so I'm hoping to have something prepared within the next probably 2 weeks.
Thanks for the information.
Question. In the past, we had 3 people listed on a list to do concrete work in the city. Now, I realize that because you came in under these conditions quickly, I'm just wondering, with the new bids going out, are we going to establish that again where we have at least 1, 2, 3 maybe of contractors who will be available to do things like this? Because in the past, that was the issue. We had 3 contractors, and then later on we found out, but we just kept giving it to the same contractor. Are we going to work toward that again, or are we just going to have 1 contractor do all the work?
That's a great question. And in most cases, we'll go with the low bidder. However, when you're dealing with emergency work, so for instance, if there was a water main break, a road collapse, something that's of emergent nature, you call the first contractor the low bid, see if he can mobilize. If he's able to mobilize in a efficient amount of time, then we'll give the job to him. If he says that, well, I can't get out there for 2 or 3 weeks and we can't afford to have the road closed down for 2 or 3 weeks, then we'll go to the next bidder and then the next bidder. So typically, we'll always start with the low bidder 99.999% of the time.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lyons, real quick, the CRMs. I was just over at Mill Street and Haskell, and it looks like a water main break, and they got asphalt for the sidewalk and that. Problem is, we don't know when those get fixed or when they're scheduled. How do we find out as council when people call us? They go, oh, it's been like that for 8 months, and we find out it's only been 2 months, but, you know, how can we get more information on that?
Sure. Great question. I actually just had a conversation earlier this morning to that exact nature. And we are putting together a restoration program to make sure that we are able to address any of the water main breaks or any mishaps that have occurred over the winter, that we can get to them ASAP as soon as the spring and the frost laws are off. That way, people should always anticipate that if they have a water main break in their front yard over the course of winter, the city will be there to repair that as soon as spring hits, construction season opens, and we're able to mobilize and get trucks out on the road of concrete and whatnot. So within the first 4 to 6 weeks of spring, that's when we try and tackle them. Now, some of them that are a little bit larger in size, excuse me, if they happen to have an excess amount of water that was discharged from the water main break, sometimes those holes have to sit a little bit longer, but we will communicate that with the residents to ensure that they understand the timing and when we'll be out to make that repair.
Okay, so that sounds great. How do we find out? You know, that, like I was asked about Haskell and Mill Street. How do I find out when that's going to be scheduled, or when it gets fixed? Do I just give you guys a call and say, hey, what's going on here? When do you think this will be done? So I can communicate it to the people that are contacting me.
Well, I'm hoping that they won't ask you because we will have already talked to them. But going forward, let me look at how we can put a program together to keep council informed as to the restorations that we have from over the course of the winter, the different water main breaks and whatnot, and we'll be able to communicate something, provide a report.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Not just with water mains, but also like when they did Wick Road. I know there's a house on that side down on Wick Road that they redid their driveway themselves, and then when they came through and did the paving, now it's all messed up right where they had dug and did things like that. So I don't know if that was the one who had contacted you, because they had just contacted me today on it. How does that get fixed? She said she's contacted the cities 8 times, and I don't know what the address is exactly, but I know it's east of Morton View. But they had just done their driveway, and then they came down and did Wick Road with the blacktop or whatever it was, asphalt that they did. And so it's all messed up, and she just wants them just maybe even just bring rocks, fill it up or whatever. So I can get the information and I'll send it to you.
Okay, if that would be great. We can also look at it tomorrow, and we'll address it immediately.
Okay, thank you. But I appreciate that with the communication with us.
Sure.
You know, we don't get a lot of the communication coming to the council, so I really appreciate that, and I think everybody else does.
If not, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Item 6.14 is a motion to approve Al's Asphalt low bidder to perform concrete